What's going on, everybody? Scott Hogan coming at you. We're going to do a new series here, something that, as a golf professional, somebody that teaches full time, this drives everybody nuts. And, as in my industry, is we hear tour talk, things that go on at tour events, stuff that goes on in the golf media, and it drives us nuts. But at the same time, sometimes it keeps us going in business, which is nice. But, we usually hear things about swings that you're like, hey, that's not right. And, you hear things that go on from a competitive standpoint, and it's just always something that's interesting. So we want to start talking about those a little bit. We'll have some tour swings in this. We'll start showing some shots and stuff like that, and kind of help you see what you're looking at on TV. We want to help you understand what's going on and make better decisions, hit better shots, and play the game better. So we're going to do that. There's nothing to talk about from this tournament this last week, right? It was pretty uneventful. Yeah, right. We're going to get to Patrick Reed here today. We're going to talk some rules because I think this is important as we go forward. All right, everybody. So tour talk here. Let's start talking about it. The thing of this past week was Patrick Reed. Did he cheat? Did he not? So if you're not familiar with the situation, Patrick Reed on the 10th hole on Saturday, he hit a shot. It went way left, and it went it looks like it went over a hill. It was into the sun, and it also was way left of target. And he hit it. Ball landed up there. It was extremely wet. It had rained like an inch or something. If you saw the rounds on Friday, there was like standing puddles in the fairways. It was a ton of rain. And that grass they play on in California anyway is softer in general, especially at this time of year. So you tend to get a little bit more softer conditions. And what happens is the ball starts to embed and it plugs in the ground. Now, that's important to know because in the rules, if your golf ball embeds in the ground, you get free relief, okay? You get a club length from that spot, you get to drop it. Used to be you had to place it right as close as you could. They did that with the rules changes. They made it a club length for whatever reason. So that's what the rule is. Now, so he hit this shot, it went way left. They have volunteers out there, they marshal the holes. And so a couple things we have to take into account was, one, how many people are out there? If we had a full-fledged tour event, you'd have more people out there saying, and he could ask more people what happened when he gets up there. Two, you have reputation of the player. That comes into play. You have to think about that a little bit, but not from this. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But the third thing you have to think about was, did the player proceed correctly and do everything that he can do? Sometimes, you're just not going to get it 100% right. But as golfers, the real thing is you have to do it in the manner that you have to do it. You have to just follow the procedures and do everything in your power to do it as correct as possible, and sometimes that has to be good enough. So the first thing is number of people. So he hits it up there. Again, you're looking into the sun. You've got a ball that's in super deep rough, and you hit it way offline where nobody is looking. Everybody's looking up at the green. It looks like he hit it, 30, 40 yards left of the green, and nobody's really looking over there. And if you've been in that situation, the ball just hits. It just hits and it's done. And you don't have time to look and catch it where it bounces, especially if you're not looking at it. So this volunteer said, Patrick Reed walked up there and he said, hey, she said, hey, the ball's right by my flag. He said, okay, did it bounce? And she said no. And he asked his playing partners, hey, did you see it bounce? And they said no. And again, it's a hard thing to see a ball in those conditions. And it looked like, again, it went down into a bottom of a low area where you probably wouldn't even see it bounce if it did bounce. So he goes to check it. So he's under the impression that this ball probably is plugged because nobody saw it bounce. So that's gonna definitely play into what's going on. But he goes to check it. He does everything right. You announce to your partners. You have to announce it, or else that's a penalty. You can't move your ball without telling your playing partners what you're doing. Jim Furyk had that happen many years ago in a tournament, and it was a big deal actually, and he got called on it. So you mark it with the tee, you lift it, you look for mud, and then you start looking and seeing if the surface was broke. And by meaning the layer of ground is basically pushed down. You see this a lot at Hilton Head in South Carolina. And so, you have to look at it. And so he started kind of feeling the ground, seeing if there was a lip and an edge and if ground was broke. he said, yeah, but I think I'm going to get a rules official to confirm this. And so the rules official came in. He set the ball down on the side because you cannot clean it. I think this was Patrick actually trying to be very conscious that people don't think he's cheating by him just setting it off to the side, because he doesn't want it in his hand where people might rub it and clean it. So the official comes over. He puts it down in there. He puts his finger in there. He's like, yeah, I think you broke ground. There you go. Now, the big issue here is cameras show that ball bounced. Again, we don't know. Nobody saw it live. Cameras are not allowed to be used in rulings, which I think is a really good thing, because I think you have to, take what golf is it's an imperfect game. We try our best to enforce the rules, but it doesn't exactly work out all the time. And, but do we want to slow the game down by getting cameras and everything involved all the time? I don't. Golf is already slow enough. And, do we like the idea that, hey, we do police ourselves and things like that? I do. So, it showed it bounced. It's highly unlikely that ball was actually in its own pitch mark and embedded. It is possible that it is wet enough where the second bounce could have broke the surface. It is not impossible, especially in a low area like that. Now, it also was really, really close to the cart path, where you are in a depression, okay, which you see a lot around cart paths because people drive off the edges and stuff. We call those extensions of the cart path. So he would actually get free relief from that anyway, if that was something like that. Again, I'm doubting that's what it was, but it might have been he just was in another hole. He was in another divot, which that would be a bad break, and he wouldn't get relief from that. There's so many gray areas to here, but at the end of the day, the players didn't see anything. The volunteers didn't see anything. He thought he was in it. The official thought he was in it. There's nothing really that he did wrong, and this really shouldn't be that big of a deal, in my opinion. Now, with that said, we go on to the next thing, reputation of the player. It is Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is known for, he's done some questionable things at college, pretty much can confirm that he was cheating in college because he was suspended from his coach and stuff, so they caught him cheating. And in golf, that is the worst thing. You do not want that reputation, because on something like this, where it's pretty straightforward, if you ask me, of what's going on, he is in trouble. Rory McIlroy had the exact same thing, and nobody's really questioning Rory on that one. And everybody's taking him at his word that ball went back in its own pitch mark for Rory, but we don't know. We're just taking his word because he does have a good reputation, so that does matter, okay? Now, with that said, if it matters, where it falls on then, it actually falls onto, in my opinion, it falls onto the people in the group, the other players in the group. If you know that, hey, you have somebody that is a questionable rules, he tries to bend the rules, things like that, then you have to, if he's going to take a drop, or if he's going to start looking at something like this, then they have to come over and verify it. They can't just take his word and say, hey, I think it's embedded. But at the same time, they brought a rules official in. The rules official said it's embedded. So why would they even have to worry? It's just a weird situation that happened, and it's just being blown way out because of what's going on with the camera view and stuff. So you have that. And then you go into the last thing and you start thinking about what would be the solution. Okay, so we have an issue, we have a problem. What would be the solution? The thing that I did not like, and this drives me nuts, and this is part of why we're making this video, is they got on TV on, CBS started the broadcast. They bring everybody in and they say, hey, what do you think? And they all basically called him a cheater, right? They call him a cheater, and to me, it's like, hey, you guys have access to the cameras. Why aren't you there? You can come up and say something. They can't go review the tape for the tour, but you can say, hey, yeah, that ball bounced, Patrick, by the way, or whatever. I mean, you can say that. But the question I would have is, what would you do any different? What would you have a player do any different in that? He basically followed it by the letter of the law. He did everything right. Okay, he did everything right. Maybe they're saying, hey, I'm not going to poke around down there, and maybe he's going to put it in there. I Yeah, okay, but do we want to have anytime anybody's going to start, getting close to their golf ball? Are you going to start having, hey, you have to come over? I mean, we're going to slow the game down a ton. I just don't understand what to do differently here, and why he has to answer for it, and why are we just putting this into such a bad light that makes this look a lot worse. I just don't think that that's the right approach. I don't think it grows the game. I don't think it makes golf look good when we do that, because people coming from other sports, they watch basketball, they watch football. I mean, they see people trying to get away with things and they're not fessing up to it all the time. I'm not saying I want that to happen here in golf, but people are looking at it and they're like, wait, so people that are newer to the game, and I talked to a couple, they're like, okay, so what's the big deal? What was going on? And I said, well, he did this and this and this. They're like, oh, well, what is he supposed to do? I said, well, nothing. Like you're supposed to, if you have any doubts, either, you call the players over or you call your rules official over. And they're like, well, did he do that? They're like, yeah. And, okay, what's the problem? And it just, I hate criticism without a solution. And so it's one of those things, and it's like, all right, what would you rather have? Well, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The solutions offered up didn't make sense, because he did a lot of these things. He didn't clean his ball. You can hear him clearly in the video after the rules official said, hey, that is embedded. You can clean it. You can say the one solution would be, go into videotape and stuff like that. But to me, that's not a solution, because I don't want people, I think it's ridiculous that people get, stuff like Anna Nordqvist had that thing at the US Open where she took like a grain of sand that they had to zoom in like 1,000 times to see, and that decides tournaments, yet you're not filming everybody. You're not filming everybody, and everything's not caught on tape. I don't like that, and so, it is what it is, I guess. But love to hear your thoughts on it. Comment down below. Did you think he cheated? What would be some solutions? I think this is important for the golf world, just to make sure we're not hurting our game by, just arguing over nothing. That's one of the things that's great about golf is that we don't do those things, in my opinion. So what do you think? What would you like to see? What would you do differently? I would love to hear your thoughts. So again, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. We're going to have more of these. We're going to talk a little bit. We got some waste management coming up next week. One of my favorite tournaments. Used to love going to it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we'll go from there with Tour Talk. Talk a little bit more about some swings and things like that. So again, leave a comment down below. What did you think? And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.